You're feeling insecure about this, or maybe not. Either way, let's talk about it. Let's get down to the real truth. We've all been here at some point in our lives. I mean, I was addicted to pornography for 15 years, and I will tell you, in my most insecure moments, after watching pornography videos, I would take out a measuring tape and I would look to see if I compared to the numbers that I would hear in the titles, right? Because some of the titles are always about how big some guy's appendage is or whatever it might be. So here's the deal. If you've had this insecurity, number one, you're not alone. But number two, I have some really, really good news for you that you're gonna find very helpful in this video. To drive this point home a little bit further, there's actually a study that showed that people who viewed pornography were actually more likely to have eating disorders. Now, why do you think that would be? How could that even be? If you look into eating disorders, people that have eating disorders have a thing called body dysmorphia. And body dysmorphia is where we feel like something's wrong with our bodies. They're not good enough, they're not strong enough. In this case, the sausage isn't big enough. And because of that, we end up eating differently. So this study showed that people who watched porn were more likely to have avoiding behaviors around food and other kind of toxic mentalities and actions because of their body dysmorphia. This is the stuff that people don't talk about when they talk about watching pornography. It seems so harmless, but it's actually programming your mind. So let's kind of take this a step further, right? Because porn actually sends messages about what a man should look like. Right? If you've ever looked at mainstream pornography, we know that every single dude has six-pack abs, right? He's got a chiseled jaw, and his lap rocket, you know what I'm talking about, is usually some ridiculous number, right? It's like a 25-inch lap rocket. You got to check this guy out. So this is the messaging that we're getting from a young age. And when you're 10 years old and you first watch pornography, you don't think anything of it. You don't maybe even understand what's going on. But then you're 16 and you're 21 and you're starting to chase girls and you're starting to have sexual experiences. And all of a sudden, these insecurities rise to the surface because of what porn's been teaching us. Now, to drive this home even worse, porn is so bad for your cucumber that in 2001, okay, they did a study among guys that were under the age of 40 years old. And they found that they had about 5% that had erectile dysfunction. Now, this is a pretty standard stat, like you're under 40 years old, you're in the peak of your physical condition, your trouser snake should be working at, prime condition, right? It's kind of an exception. In 2018, they did a study, and this same demographic, okay, under 40 years old, reported 25% with ED. So this is, 17 years, and what's happened in these 17 years? Okay, well, a couple of things. So the first thing that's happened is broadband internet. And broadband internet has made videos and high quality graphics very accessible. The second thing is the smartphone. And so all of these things have made the messages of pornography and what a male body should look like strong, stark, and basically embedded in our heads. Now, pornography is so stimulating that when you go into bed with a real woman, it doesn't provide the same level of stimulation, and that's why you get this erectile dysfunction. So if you're watching this video and you're dealing with insecurity, or maybe you're dealing with a floppy disk, I'm gonna help you with both of those things and really set the record straight because pornography really has sent us tons of misinformation about all of this stuff. Now, here's the good news, okay? Number one is that what you see in pornography is not actually real. In fact, I'm friends with a bunch of former porn stars, and they'll all tell you that just to get through the scenes in pornography, these guys are on all kinds of drugs. They have to take these enhancement pills, or sometimes they're needles, there's supplements, there's different things that they take just to get these unnatural phallic responses. Okay, now you're probably ready for some good news, so let me lay it on you. They've surveyed the average length of the male lamppost again and again. And you ready for it? The average length, this same number comes back again and again. Get out your measure, just don't get out your measuring tape, okay? But the average length here is 5.4 inches, okay? So look, when you hear about this like 12-inch cucumber and this guy with like this unnaturally large appendage, it's exactly that. It's unnatural, it's not normal, and I can tell you most women, they don't want that. The average length. Now this is actually like, I'm a man of faith. So for me, I'm like, this is God's design. Even if you're not a person of faith and you just believe in evolution, evolutionarily, this is how the body has adapted. So this is healthy, this is normal, and this is not at all what's depicted in mainstream pornography or even what these stupid influencers talk about online. They're all lying anyways. They all got a bunch of floppy disks and we know it. Let's talk about the real conversation here, which is actually handling insecurity, right? Because whether you have insecurity around your footlong or something else that's physical, emotional, or just, in your personality, we need to have tools as men on how to handle insecurity. So we've already done some really good searching of the facts. And this is always a very good place to start. Facts can be really, really helpful. So you may believe that, you're not enough as a man, that if your oak tree had just a little bit more length, you'd have a little bit more to offer the world. The facts tell us otherwise. That's really not true. And as a matter of fact, I'll give you another fact. Women were surveyed on how much the size of a man's you-know-what actually matters. And over 90% of them said they don't care about size. They don't care about it. So the odds are in your favor that whether you're sexually active or not, when the time comes, you have nothing to worry about. Okay, the second thing we need to actually talk about though is your identity. Now, I have a really important question for you about this identity thing, okay? And you need to be able to answer this question. Every man must be able to answer this question. The key here is not being able to answer this question because you can say like, well, I'm Sathiya, or I'm a YouTuber, or I'm a recovery coach. We can answer these questions really rapidly. But the question is, how do you answer this question in a way that leaves no opportunity for insecurity? So the problem for me is if I answer, well, I'm a porn recovery specialist, that's my full-time work and that's who I am. Well, what happens if I fail in that regard? Maybe I don't successfully help a client. It used to happen a lot more, it doesn't happen a lot now. But there's still a chance for insecurity. Because if I don't perform well, then my security as a person and as a man is affected. So when we answer this question, the goal is, let me use blue for this. The goal is we want to answer this. Now, I mentioned I'm a person of faith, and this is where my relationship with God becomes really important. This is my identifying factor. My relationship with God means that because God is perfect, He's unchanging, and that's the foundation of my identity, I don't have to worry about feeling insecure, not in who I am, and certainly not in my salamander. So these two things right here are actually really, really good for tackling insecurity. But we got one more thing that we need to add. Now, I have a coaching practice. We're typically helping, around 100 men at a time quit pornography, sometimes more than that. About 25% of them experience erectile dysfunction. And in some seasons that number's higher. It just depends on the clients we're working with. My lead coach actually dealt with erectile dysfunction for many, many years. And there's a reason for that, and I want to talk about it. Okay, I mean, if we're talking about your oak tree, we might as well be talking about the roots of the tree as well, right? Really, the most important thing we need to talk about here is the insecurity. How did this even start in the first place, right? So we know facts can combat insecurity at kind of a logical level. Your identity, obviously that's a bit more psychological. But if we get a little bit deeper into even just the neuroscience and the way your brain's been programmed, and why would me as an insecure 22-year-old, why would I get out a measuring tape to take a look and see where my oboe actually lines up with everybody else that I'm watching? Well, it's actually because of something going on at more of a root level. So when somebody struggles with erectile dysfunction, which as I mentioned about 25% of our client base does, what's happening is the level of stimulus that they get from, a real person is, let's say it's here, okay? And the level of stimulation that they get from porn is way higher. So you have a real person, then you have porn. And porn is way, 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 way more stimulating. Now, when you first watch it, it doesn't matter because you have this thing called an arousal threshold. And your arousal threshold as just like a normal, innocent, untouched man is somewhere around here. So this is your threshold. This is how much stimulation you need to climax and to actually get a release. So when you have early sexual experiences with a real person, if your threshold's here because maybe you're watching some porn but not a lot, well, it's no problem. You have all these great experiences. But what happens as time goes on is this threshold gets higher and higher and higher. And eventually, because you watch so much pornography, now only porn can give you the satisfaction, and it can barely do that. And so when you have a real person experience, as you can see, this is not high enough. It's not enough at the threshold for your corn on the cob to actually have some kind of memorable experience. And so the root work is really about rewiring your brain, reprogramming your brain so that a real life experience can actually compare. We need to somehow lower this threshold. And that's what the root work is all about. So there's a couple things that you want to do for root work that I'll go through real quick. And then I can point you to some more resources if you want to get a little bit deeper into this. The first thing, plain and simple, is stop. Stop watching porn. Okay? Don't just reduce it. Don't just try to nurture it and manage it. Get rid of it. Stop watching porn. Give your brain and your body a reset. So this is actually what I typically recommend. Is for most people, we want a 30-day reset. Okay? Now, after you do a 30-day reset, the second thing you want to do to kind of reprogram your brain and get it working properly again is you want to start to address underlying causes. And if we do this properly, this is the real moneymaker right here. If we can do this properly, you're going to see a really quick reset, and you're going to see all the insecurity and all the other stuff we talked about go away. I'll tell you, for me, I quit watching pornography in 2016. By the time I met the woman who's now my wife, we waited until marriage, and by the time we were ready to be sexually active, I had zero insecurity despite being addicted to porn for 15 years, having the measuring tape, trying to see if my clarinet could actually compete. And the truth is, if you do these three things, you face the facts, you work on your identity, and you really do the root work, and you start to rewire your brain and get to some of these underlying causes, you can be in that place as well. And you can actually start to walk in real security in your life. And that's the actual goal. When a man is walking in security, he's gonna be at his best. And whether your eel is 2 inches, 20 inches, or somewhere in between, you're gonna be able to line up no problem because you really know who you are and you have no apologies about it. That's the goal. So I hope you found this video helpful and that you realize there's nothing to be ashamed of about your drumstick, no matter what it looks like. Look, what I want you to do is to share this video with a buddy that you think might benefit, without throwing any shade at him, okay? Share it kindly and let's see if they can get some value from it as well.